city with the mean high tide line. In the news recently, we've been hearing all the flooding along the Mississippi, and I'm just wondering, what's the 100-year flood outlook here, and what would happen to that project if it had flooding?
Allison's leaping to my rescue because she knows there's no possible way I can answer that question. Hang on.
Thanks, Leslie. Okay, so that's a great question. We had to look at both the 100-year flood, and for the first time that I've ever been involved with, we had to look at global warming and the impacts of sea level rise due to global warming. So, because it's kind of technical, I can't tell you exactly what the conclusion was. We actually did a whole technical study on this. That's part of the environmental impact report. But we had to do the grading in such a way that there was a certain amount of freeboard. I'm new to the development world, so I think that's what it's called. Freeboard is the foundation of the building that is above water, even in a high tide or a flood event. And so we actually did account for that. It's in the environmental impact report. I can't remember what the conclusion was or how, but we've basically been forced to deal with that both for global warming and flood.
Specifically with Pacifica's residential development, how much, if any, is allocated to affordable family and senior living?
That's a really good question too. We're required to provide 10% for affordable housing, and it's, trying to remember.
Isn't it 20% for a redevelopment project?
It's actually 10%. The city is actually thinking of increasing it to 15%, so it will be whatever is the law at the time that our project goes forward. So if the law changes, we would have to comply with that. But right now, it's 10%, and it's split between
redevelopment has
median and low to median, and I don't remember off the top of my head how that percentage is split. It's in the environmental impact report, and I can get the answer for you. So we're, I'm trying to remember how many units it is. But we're providing, at the moment, what we're planning on doing is providing on-site affordable housing. Although we have an open mind, some people have approached us about doing off-site affordable housing and doing different mix of units. The trouble with that is we have to get the city to agree to it, since we're simply complying with the city's regulations at this point in time. Thank you.
So, thank you very much. The 20% that you were talking about, sir, and then we can go to you if you'd like, is that, and I know, for example, that Gaylord would be contributing toward the creation of affordable housing with its revenues, because 20% of the tax increment revenues that come off of these projects then go into, are set aside to create affordable housing. The city then has a mandate Pacifica would have to provide 10%, and then the city has a requirement of at least doing 15% of any project they're involved in financially. 15% has to be for low and moderate income housing.
Thank you.
Oh,
Sir, do you want to go ahead and speak?
yeah, so my question actually, in your presentation you described Gaylord, by the way, Pacifica, you don't need to apologize for your stuff. Your project is very good.
Thank you.
It gets built immediately.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
On the other, and Gaylord project is great too, but I have a couple of questions. You mentioned that this is a $900 million private investment. You also suggested it may be as much as $1 billion. And then you described that you're in negotiations with the port and with the city of Chula Vista in terms of, well, you didn't describe, you just said you were in discussions. And so can you explain some of those discussions? Because I don't understand how a Gaylord comes in with $1 billion of private money and anybody would be hesitant to agree with you, or is it the case that there is public money being used to support your project and that's why you're in negotiation?
Absolutely, I'm glad you clarified that. The total project cost, we expect to approach $1 billion. That's the cost to do the project. Now, the discussion of public money falls into two categories. One, the cost of creating all of the roads and the sewer lines and the water, they call that infrastructure, that you'll need to do any of these improvements, Pacifica, Gaylord, or beyond, any of those improvements. All that infrastructure has to be put in first and up front. So the city would be involved in issuing bonds for a portion of that, and that number in 2005 was estimated at about $178 million. That then would be paid off with revenues from our project over time. So ultimately, rather than the city of Chula Vista taxpayers paying to build those roads and put those water lines in essence, future guests and visitors coming to the area will build them for us, and that'll come through the hotel revenues. So that's one of the advantages. The other is an incentive to Gaylord to come, some assistance to help make this project a reality from the city of Chula Vista. And that was estimated in 2005 at $130 million. Since 2005, all of those numbers have changed, certainly not formally, but we do know that the overall costs of doing the infrastructure and of building the project have increased, and so that's the nature of the negotiations. Thank you so much for asking that question so I can clarify that. Thank you. I promise this gentleman I come back, and then let me, I'll just sort of sweep around the room from one side to the other.
Is there a proactive employment development plan that includes outreach to the community, livable wages, and such?
Definitely, definitely. It's going to be very important that we hire as many local residents of Chula Vista and, of course, local workers in San Diego. Gaylord is committed to that. I'm sure you've heard some discussions of some of the union activity and seen maybe some of the billboards, and that is a conversation that we're absolutely willing to have. Gaylord is very supportive of having union labor play a role in the development of this project, as they have in every one of their other hotels. And so, yes, we'll have active outreach for both the construction and for the permanent employment positions of the hotel. Gentleman in the back, and then we'll go this way.
I've received some information from Gaylord in the past. The first one had to do with the stars that you mentioned, the workers, employees. I went back asking them questions about how many of the so-called stars are making a living wage, how many are unionized, how many get benefits. Never got an answer. Maybe you could help us with that. You gave us a number of once the place is established, the income would be in the 120-something million. Well, we all know one CEO could cover most of that. There's jobs, but are they Walmart-style jobs or real jobs?
They do. And the facility, because of the hotel and convention center, will have a range of jobs. And certainly, Gaylord becomes an employer of choice in their markets by providing livable wages to their employees. In terms of the specifics, and I'm sorry that no one got back to you with a response, I'd be more than happy to talk with you after the meeting and try to find out very specific questions you'd like to have answered. Thank you.
For both of you, I'm wondering what percentage of your total energy will be generated on-site specifically through solar energy?
I don't know the technical answer to that question. I do know that it's a commitment that is in the EIR. Allison, do you want to try and speak to that?
Well,
Because I don't know that we can cite a number at this point.
We're participating in SDG&E's Sustainable Communities Program, and in order to do that, we had to commit to beating Title 24 by 15%. So we said 20, and then we had to do LEED certification. And maybe that we even have to do LEED Silver for that. But anyway, we're moving toward a LEED Silver commitment anyway. And we don't know. We haven't done an energy analysis yet. So we don't know exactly how much is going to be solar, fuel cell. There are a lot of possibilities for energy generation. We know that to the extent that we cannot be pulling off of the grid, that's what we should be doing. So I hope we can continue that conversation with people as we move forward. I don't know exactly, other than beating Title 24 by 20%.